video presents an example about the model formulation of the linear model. We take an example which is quite advanced, so it includes polynomial continuous predictor that is implemented in a polynomial form and a categorical predictor with three levels. So the model becomes quite complicated, but as we assume that basics are known even from the previous courses, we can start directly with this quite advanced example. So we assume that there is a machine working in a clear cut area where trees have been cut, and we want to lift stumps of trees that have been cut to be used for bioenergy. And we assume there are three machines that are working, and we assume that the time consumption, so we are modeling the time consumption or processing time that is needed for one single stump in seconds for the machine. And there are three different clear-cut areas that were processed, and on each clear-cut area there is a different machine working. Now we think that the difference in the clear-cut areas and machines is caused only by machines. That is an assumption we make here, but practically and actually we cannot separate the effect of machine and clear-cut in this example. But ignoring this, we can progress with this model that is shown here. So we have recoded the machine so that M2 means that the stump was lifted using machine 1, and M3 is an indicator variable, binary variable, says whether the stump was processed using machine 3 or not. Now, and then the DI here is the diameter of the stump in centimeters. Now in this model, this part here gives now the processing time for machine 1, because machine 1 was the machine for which the indicator variable is not included in the model, and that's why this part gives the function for that machine. And then this part here shows the difference between machine 1 and machine 2, and this part here shows the difference between machine 3 and machine 2. And because we have interaction terms for machine and diameter, and also for machine and diameter squared, we have separate second order polynomials for all three machines. So for illustration, this model is not based on any data, but for illustration we assume unrealistically that we really know the true parameter values of the model, and they are the ones shown in the table here. And now we illustrate the vector formulation of the matrix using three different stumps. So we have stump 1 that was processed using machine 1, then stump 2 that was processed using machine 3, and stump 3 that was processed using machine 2, and here are the diameters of those three stumps. And now if we want to, or when we formulate the model for that stump, we see that this xi vector, so if we want to write the model in this form, then the xi vector is specified for stump I. So here the I gets value 1, here the I gets value 2, and I gets value 3. And now this y, the first stump, was processed using machine 1, and therefore the terms or predictors for that include dummy variables for machine 2 and 3 become zeros, and these are the only predictors that get non-zero values. And here this gives the constant, this is for the intercept term, and here we have the diameter, and here we have the diameter squared. Then the second stamp was processed using machine 3, and therefore the terms that correspond to machine 2 become zeros, and for other predictors we get diameter here, diameter squared, and here is again the diameter and diameter squared. And correspondingly for machine, for stamp 2 that was processed stamp 3 that was processed using machine 2, we have a vector like this, and our regression coefficients are included in this vector here. If we take a closer look at these true parameter values, we notice that this beta 3 is 0, and then if we want to compute the machine-specific production functions or time consumption functions, we get this function for machine 1, so the second order term disappears because the one parameter was 0, and then for the machine 2 we specify m2 is 1 and m3 is 0, and then we get this function, and for machine 3 a similar logic gives this kind of function. In R package LM4 there is dataset called StumpLift, and this dataset is something that could have been generated by this model. We don't know if it has been generated by this model because it's empirical data. We never know the true model of the data, but at least estimates of the parameters are very close to the ones shown here. The data includes a total of 485 observations and this number of stumps per machine. And now I will show the matrix and formulation for the model, for this particular model. So the model matrix is big. It has 485 rows and 9 columns. But it can be written in a compact form like this, where x1 is the model matrix for the first machine, x2 for the second machine, x3 for the third machine. So for example, x1 would be a matrix including diameters. So here in my notations, d11 means the diameter of the machine 1 and tree 1, and nr1 means that it is the last observations of observation processed by using machine 1, and the third column includes those diameters squared. And this is how we could specify the model matrix x1 and corresponding matrices for x2 and x3, and now the model matrix is of this particular form. And the vector of regression coefficients is same as before, even in this matrix formulation, and then the variance covariance matrix of E is 485 by 485 matrix. It's a very big matrix, and here this sigma squared says that the variance of first observation of the data is sigma squared. This says that the variance of second observation in the data is sigma squared. This says that the variance of third observation of the data is sigma squared, and also that of the last observation is sigma squared. So this says that all observations have the same variance, so therefore we are assuming a constant variance for all observations. And then there are a lot of zeros outside here, and each of those zeros specify that particular covariance between those particular two observations is 0, and because they are all zeros, it says that all covariances are 0, so the Y and E both are uncorrelated. And then just to illustrate the thinking behind the linear model, we assume that there is a true model behind the data, then we have some data, we can observe something that is realization of the data, and based on we try to estimate the data. Now we are doing something that is not done in the analysis, but this is illustrating how we think the process in the statistics. So we assume that there is a true model, and now we specify the true model, and now we can simulate one possible realization of the assumed model for those machine diameter combinations that we have in the dataset. And that data is shown in figure 1.1. The essential R scripts are presented below, but I will not explain them on this. So the simulated data are shown here. The black dots are those generated by machine 1. The green dots, if I remember correctly, are generated by machine. Yeah, it's shown here. Green dots are generated by machine 3, or they are processed using machine 3, and the red dots are the time consumptions for machine 2. So they are not something we have observed, but if the model we specified would be true, it might be possible to observe data that looks something like this. And these thick lines here show the true expected value of the data. So it also demonstrates that the regression lines give the expected value, but the true observations vary around that line with the variance covariance structure we have specified in matrix sigma squared R.